Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have something a little bit different for you today. I want to discuss online dating with you, particularly how to avoid getting scammed in online dating. From my perspective, it's something that's important to me because, well, I haven't been scammed because, I hate to say that I'm too smart for that kind of thing, but I mean, you temper your expectations, or at least I do, so that I know. I guess I do. I'm pretty analytical, and I think pretty logically, and things like that. And when things don't add up, then I notice it really well. But for those of you that might be new to online dating, or maybe you have other circumstances that you're trying to work through and things like that, and you just want a better perspective of what to look for and what to avoid and things like that. I'd like to try and help you with that today. So, I have been online dating for quite some time in my life. Actually, I was kind of like an early adopter to it, I guess. So that helps me bring a good perspective to it. I've been off and on online dating since the mid 2000s, which which tells you how much I've been into it. I haven't been, although I will say I've been married and I'm divorced now, so it's not like I'm just a serial online dater, and I never had a relationship or didn't want one or anything like that. My marriage actually came out of online dating, so that was kind of a good thing that came out of it. Didn't end up so good, but these things happen sometimes in life. So, but yeah, so I've been around the block a lot as far as online dating goes, so I kind of know what to recognize and what not to recognize. And let me tell you, these past through. So, let me go back to my timeline first before I start. So, back in the mid 2000s, it was a lot different. Life in general was a lot different. The online dating scene was a lot different. The whole atmosphere was a whole lot different. And when I say that, I'm saying you could actually meet real people online, and there wasn't a whole lot of pretext like, oh, I'm looking for something very specific, or you have to meet certain criteria, that type of thing. It was just about talking to people more or less, and getting to know someone, and if something happened, good, or you had your intentions known, you put it out there like, I want to meet somebody or something like that. And there was no pretext like, oh, you have to be able to impress me with your when you message me in the DMs or something like that by what you say or something like that, which I think is ridiculous anyway. But I might get into that later. But so early on, it was really easy. It was really easy going. There was virtually no scammers or anything like that on there. And even on as I went later on in life, I went through relationships and went back to online dating, because I didn't want to do the bar scene or the club scene or anything like that, because I was never really into that kind of thing, because I know the trouble and drama that meeting someone at a bar can come with and things like that. And I didn't want to, because I'm not a drinker or anything like that, or a partier or anything like that anyway. So I didn't want to date someone that was into that kind of stuff either, and that's all I wanted to do. So that's kind of why I didn't go into this. So online dating seemed like a good alternative for me, and that's why I started doing it. So anyway, going, as I dated more and more and went on through things and stuff like that, I continued to go back to online dating when I was searching for a relationship. And it happened up until, even even as late as 2012, 2013. And 2013 is when I got married. When I met somebody and got married was in 2013 from online dating. But 2012, 2013, things still weren't bad. Things still weren't bad. There wasn't a whole lot of scammers. There was still not a whole lot of scammers on there, but the difference is that unfortunately, that then you got into the men who were looking for one thing and one thing only, if you know what I mean, and we were starting to get a lot of the more creepy men and things like that on there, and women who were only looking, they wanted somebody to impress them and things like that, and the more you impressed them, the more of a good chance you had with them, and things like that by the words you said and things like that. When you DM them or IM them or whatever terminology you want to use for it nowadays, it's DM now. A few years ago, it was it wasn't DM, it was PM, private message, or IM, instant message. But so the terminology's changed a little bit. But things started to change a little bit, but they were still good. I was still able to meet and talk to people. I was still able to talk to people and meet people who were real and things like that in real life. And I didn't really come across any scammers at the time, or anything like that. So then I was married for 7 years, and after my marriage ended pretty much in the year 2020, I went back to online dating again, and it was just a whole different ballgame, man. Let me tell you, so nobody was talking to anybody. Nobody talks to anybody anymore online dating. It's just it's like they put up their profile, and either they get bored with it and they check out, and they're just not looking to see if they're getting any messages anymore, or they're looking for something, they're looking for something unrealistic that they're not going to get. As far as a guy goes, they're looking for somebody who this might be a little bit old for anybody out there, but my mom says they're looking for a Cindy Crawford. They look like Barney Fife, but they're looking for a Cindy Crawford wife. No, that's old. That's old back from back in the day. But it's not all about looks, of course, but perception of online. I mean, the first thing you see when you're online dating is you see that picture of someone, so it automatically creates that perception. So. People are honestly looking for unrealistic. They have unrealistic expectations of finding someone when they go into online dating. They think they're going to find somebody perfect, and perfection is not something you're ever going to find anywhere on Earth. So there's the hope of finding perfection online dating, and there's these women who are really shallow, unfortunately, and materialistic and things like that, and they're looking for the men who, what can you do for me type of thing. They're looking for somebody to try and impress them by saying something witty or something, or smart, or some kind of joke or something like that, or pun or something like that, when they message them. And I don't really like that, because I feel that if you're not the type of person who's super witty or something like that, why should you have to try and be someone you're not to try and impress some woman? And chances are that woman is probably not the right one for you if they're asking for that anyway, and that's not your personality. So it's probably worth it. It's probably worth it not to try to do that. So, yeah, and the other thing is that there's still a lot of creepers out there and things like that. Creepy men, who are just looking to see, nude photos and nude videos of women and stuff like that. And trying to get into those types of relationships when the women aren't necessarily looking for that. They are, I mean, sometimes, but that's what websites like Tinder and Adult Friend Finder are for and stuff like that, which are terrible in their own rights. But anyway, so, and the other thing that's going on right now is scammers. Scammers have realized that that online dating is the perfect opportunity to exploit people, particularly lonely men who are desperate. They're lonely men who are desperate. They're not always the best looking men. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they just don't have good self esteem or whatever. Um, the situations vary that these men come into it, but it's mostly men. There are some women who come across scammers and things like that, but it's usually men. And the scammers know that, and they know there's a lot of lonely men, and there's a lot of men who are looking for a online thrill type of thing, even just cyber sex and all that stuff, and just looking for that online and stuff like that. And the scammers know that, and they're taking full advantage of it now, unfortunately. And it's run amok, really, because the several dating sites that I've been on more recently, it's just like pretty much you're not getting messaged, and when you are, it's a scammer. And that's kind of indicative of the situation right now, unfortunately. So, but what my main point of this was, which I kind of got into a rabbit hole here, but that's okay, because I wanted to explain the background of it just in case anybody hasn't been around as long as I have, or hasn't been online dating as long as I have, and they're like, is this how it's always been? Why does anybody even try this if this is how it's always been? So, but no, it hasn't always been this way. But I'd like to go into some ways to avoid being scammed online dating. So let's say you're signing up for a dating site, and you're looking through profiles, and you click on some profiles because you like the way the women look, and maybe you like what they said in their profile and things like that. Some women don't put things in their profiles at all, and that's one of the first red flags that I always watch out for when going to online dating, is if they only have like one photo on their profile, and they haven't written anything. They haven't written anything in their profile. That they haven't written anything substantially in their profile. Maybe under like the description of themselves, the bio or something they wrote like a couple of words like "I'm looking for love" or "hoping to find love" or something like that on here. I avoid those profiles, even if they aren't fake, because there's just not enough information to go on there. I don't know anything about the person's character, or if they're a scammer or not. I don't know, and it's important to me not to have my time wasted at my age, so I avoid those profiles for that reason, and also because they might be for those reasons, and yeah, they might be scammers. But that's a very scammers always try to get the profiles on these sites as quickly as possible, so that they can scam as many people as possible. So they're not worried about filling out profiles or anything like that. And a lot of times men will click on these profiles because they're desperate for someone to talk to, and they'll end up talking to a scammer, and they'll go into the kinds of conversations that you'll be having with scammers later on and things like that. But also an important point is the photos that they post. Oftentimes an easy way to tell scammers photos is they'll steal somebody else's photos, and they'll use even stock photos to try and scam someone. And oftentimes they aren't very good at it, and they won't change the file names on the photos that they're stealing from people. So it'll say the person's name in the photo, particularly if it's like an actress, maybe not a well-known actress, or if it's like an adult movie star or something like that. They won't change the file names on the photos, so if you download the photo of them, you'll see the file name, and it'll be somebody else's name than who they really are. Than obviously who they really are. who they said they are. And that's something that I've noticed personally in my time is that happening, because I've allowed that to happen to me, to see, because I like to experiment with things, and I like to see how people do things, particularly scammers and stuff. So it's kind of like a research project for me, and I was able to look at that and see that. So I'd like to try and keep this under 20 minutes. So we're coming up on 5 more minutes left. So I'm going to try and speed this along. Hopefully it won't be too much longer though. So, also, yeah, so I mentioned about checking for stock photos and stolen photos and things like that. If you know the actress that's being used, it's a lot easier, but if you don't, you might want to check like a reverse photo search or something like that. Try and check the file names. If the site, doesn't change the file names after it uploads them, sometimes that happens like that. Or if they send you a photo of themselves in like a DM or something like that, and you download the photo there, sometimes they won't change the file name there, and it'll be the file name of the real person they stole the photo from or whatever. Stock photos are really easy to find. I mean, just go to any stock photo site and you can see stock photos there. Type in photos of sexy women or whatever, and they'll pull up all kinds of pictures. And sometimes they use those. Sometimes they just don't care. They just want to get on there as quick as possible to scam somebody as quickly as possible. So continuing on. If you get past that point and you've decided to message this person, even though I put up these red flags, even though I've told you about these red flags, you just want to make sure you don't believe me, you think I'm lying to you, you're going to take a chance because this person looks amazing to you and you just want to try. There'll be patterns in the way that they talk to you, scammers. And one of the things that I've noticed is that when they first start a conversation up with you, there's a few common questions that they'll ask right away. They'll want to ask you what you do for a living, of course, because they're hoping to scam you to see if you have money. They will ask you where are you from, and you'll tell them where you'll naturally say where you're from, and then what their response will be is that if you ask them where they're from, their response will be from usually United States, USA. Well, no kidding. I mean, if you're in the United States, no kidding, you want to talk to somebody who's in the United States usually, unless you're into international dating, which is fine, but USA isn't a typical response that you'd expect when you're talking to someone. You want to know what city they're in, especially if you want somebody who's in that same city or close to that same city or town or whatever. So if they say USA, then that's usually a flag because they don't know cities in the USA. Typically, these scams come from other countries outside of the U.S. Unfortunately, Nigeria is a big one where you'll get a lot of scammers who are trying to steal people's money. China, Russia, those two are big as well. A lot of Asian people and Russians too. Russians and unfortunately Ukrainians too. But anyway, so yeah, you'll be asked where you live, and also another question you'll be asked is how long have you been on this dating site? Is another typical question that I always got asked by scammers is how long have you been on this dating site and what are you looking for on this dating site? And you can tell them anything. It doesn't really matter. They don't really care. They're just trying to keep the conversation going in the hopes that you'll get physically attached to this person, which makes it easier to scam the person out of the money. So they'll ask you questions, and usually, unfortunately, most of the time the conversation will be really basic, And I get bored easily when talking to these people because the conversation's so basic and you can tell there's no personality behind it. So it just gets so boring to me that sometimes I'm just like sitting here at the computer going, okay, what's next? What basic question are they gonna ask me next? So, but then yeah, they'll ask you what you're looking for, and you can tell them anything, and then their response will be usually either I'm looking for love, and they'll write sometimes they'll write some lofty explanation about what they're looking for in love, as far as they'll say like I'm looking for love, I'm looking for a man to treat me right and do all these nice things for me and love me and treat me like a queen or whatever, and usually it sounds really nice, and a lot of men say, oh yeah, that's great, I'm that person, you found the right person if that's what you're looking for. And sometimes they'll go the other way, and they'll be like, I'm looking for a cider, I'm looking for a hookup. Are you interested? And that's another way that it can go sometimes too. And you got to be really careful with that one as well. Um, and I'll explain about that as well. Um, so, um, yeah. So yeah, they'll use. Oh, and bad grammar is another thing, of course. And this is talked about in a lot of videos too, and in a lot of forums and a lot of memes and stuff like that. It's bad grammar when they're talking to you. A lot of sentences won't exactly make sense, or but you'll be able to understand what they're saying. That's still a bad indication. Anybody that's in the United States should have good grammar, unless they're foreign and they've just recently moved to the United States, which should be revealed to you before you get to this point. Um, which is another way that they can get around it, but still, if you put all these things together, there's a good chance that they're a scammer anyway. So bad grammar, yeah, definitely. One word responses. If they don't know how to speak good English and they know it, then they're gonna try and give as many one word responses as possible just to avoid um, trying to just to avoid you figuring out that they're a scammer. And what a lot of times they'll give you the one word responses for a while, and then they'll change their shift at the place that they're working at, and somebody else will come in that maybe has better English, and they'll trade off. So they'll leave their shift, and this person will come in and start talking to you, and maybe this person will have better English. So then they'll start talking to you more normally and things like that, and that's definitely something that happens as well. So they might just say, "Oh, I was busy. I didn't have time to give you good responses. I'm sorry," and things like that, and stuff like that. But just all these things together should be major red flags to anybody. But anyway, so continuing on, I have a couple more points here. Um, they might say, if you ask them, well, what do you like to do for fun or something like that? They'll say, oh, I like to do this, this, and this. I like to go to the cinema and see movies at the cinema. I like to um, do this and that. You'll notice that there's things that no one talks like that in the United States. No one talks like that in the United States. Another example is I had one person who didn't like the way my beard looked, so they said you should get your beard sorted out. And nobody talks like that in the United States. If they say, they would say something like, man, you need your beard cut, or your beard is not straight, or your beard looks terrible or ugly, or you look like shit, or something like that, They're not going to say, you need to get your beard sorted out. That's not the way we talk in the United States. We don't say things like that. We don't use the word dear, unless you're in your 50s and you're married. You don't use the word dear to refer to somebody, and they do in other countries. So, particularly China and Africa, they use deer still for referring to people that the word translates to deer anyway, that they use to refer to a loved one or somebody that they care about. But nobody uses deer in the United States. It's hun or honey or baby or something like that. It's not deer. If they're using deer, there's almost a 90% chance that they're a scammer. Okay, so the conversation's going to progress, and the conversation's going to progress, and you're going to be talking to them for maybe a while. Usually, though, they want to maximize their utility and try to scam as many people as possible. So it usually is either the second day or the third day that they're going to escalate things and try and get their ultimate goal, which is to scam you out of money. But sometimes it'll go on longer than that. If they're really skilled at it and they want to, or if they're kind of skilled at it and they want to try and establish that emotional rapport with you, because sometimes that helps if they establish if you're invested emotionally in this person, even though you've never met and things like that. If you get invested emotionally in this person, then it's a lot easier to scam too. So sometimes they'll wait longer and try and find out more about you and tell them more about their fake selves, and get you emotionally invested. And one of the ways they get you emotionally invested is they'll tell you personal details about that they've created about themselves, and about their personal lives and how they've struggled and in their lives and how they're even struggling now. And they'll start to give you sob stories about things aren't going good for me right now. You know, my relatives are sick I have a relative who's sick in the hospital, or you know, I have a job, but I'm laid off right now because of COVID. And unfortunately, COVID's a very convenient excuse to use in these types of scams now. But it's incredibly valid, unfortunately. But I'm laid off right now because of COVID. I don't have any money for food. I'm really bored. There's nothing to do because I don't have any money to go out and things like that. Or, if they're local to you, they'll be like, I don't have any money I don't drive, so I don't have any money to come and see you. I can't afford an Uber and things like that. So then usually they'll ask you for the money. They'll be like, well, look, I don't have any food in my refrigerator, and they'll send you a picture of an empty refrigerator. Can you send me 50? Can you send me 25, 50, 100, $300, whatever amount they want to try and scam you from? Can you send me this amount of money so I can eat, so I can eat, or so I can help my poor mother in the hospital, or whatever they want to choose to say to you. But they won't want you to send them cash. Sometimes they will, but usually they won't. Usually they will want you to buy them a gift card, which they claim that they can exchange for cash wherever they're from, whatever the city or country they're in or whatever. They'll claim that they can go to some store and exchange the gift card for cash, and it'll usually be like a Google Play card or a Steam card or an Apple gift card or something like that doesn't make any sense that you'd be able to get money for, but for some reason they use it as currency wherever they're from. So they'll ask you for that type of thing. And at that point, you should end the conversation and block that person and not give them any money, obviously, because you're not going to get anything in return. You're never going to meet the person. They're probably going to. I've never gotten to the point where I've actually given anybody money, which I would never do anyway. I would never give anybody money that I don't know, never met, and I've only talked to for like 2 days. That doesn't make any sense to me, and hopefully it doesn't make any sense to you either. So the last, and so there's also the other aspect of it, which is the sexual route, which is a whole different can of worms here. And I'm not going to go into that in this video. I'm going to go into it in a different video, just so you know what to look for there and avoid there and things like that. And I haven't actually experienced any of the, and I haven't actually experienced all of these, but I've experienced a little bit. But I'll tell you what I've heard about also that could possibly happen to you. And yeah, so in this video there, and I'll go into the next one. Bye bye for now, and thanks for watching.